So in the last few sessions, we looked at joins, right? And we looked at what is an inner join, what are outer joins, what are the types of outer joins, and we looked at a few examples. So we covered these concepts more conceptually, right? We looked at a couple of tables, and then we looked at how the results would look like. What we're going to do now is actually write some queries. We're going to look at how inner joins work, how to join two tables and stuff like that. So let's actually take the same examples that we covered in our slides. And what I'll do is I'll actually create those tables, insert some values, join those tables, and so on and so forth. So some of the queries that we look at here, like something like creating a table, inserting values and stuff like that, might be more repetitive for you. So if you feel it's too boring, feel free to forward it until the point where you actually reach the joins part or the outer joins part, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. So when we looked at joins, we looked at something like this, right? We looked at two tables, and we said that when we join these two tables using a common column, what we get is the common rows between those two tables. So precisely, let's do that. Let's create two tables. One let's call it like my employee or something, another my salary. And let's just insert 3 rows in it. And once we insert them, let's look at how an inner join output will look like. All right. So let's go ahead and create a table. And I'm going to call this table as, say, my employee. So I'll say create table my employee, and let's say it just has 3 columns in it, and I'm going to call these columns as employee ID, and that can be an integer. Then you can have a first name that can be a variable character 20, and then a last name. Simple stuff. So just 3 columns, and just want to make sure that I spell things correctly here. Okay, now let's just put all these in our AdventureWorks database, and later on, we can remove them. So I'm going to create this table. Oops, and let me make sure. So these are 2 options in SSMS wherein you can export the results to a file or a grid. We'll just export it to a grid. All right, so we have a table. Now let's go ahead and insert some rows into it. So insert into my employees. Values, and then what do we want to insert? Say 1 Michael Scott. All right, and I'm going to copy it 3 times now, just to make sure we insert 3 rows, and then I'll have to make sure that I change these values. So let me do that real quickly. And all right, so we have a table and we have about 3 rows in it. Let's just have a look at that table. Oh, there's an object, and let's go ahead and insert 3 rows and say select star from my employee. All right, we have 3 tables. 3 rows and a single table. All right. So now next what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing for my salary. And again, if you feel that these are too repetitive, go ahead and feel free to skip this part. I'm creating a table called my salary. I'm just making it consistent. And then again, it's going to have an employee ID, and that can be an integer, and then it's going to have, say, salary, right? And I'm just giving it a float, so you can include decimals if you want, but that's not a point here. And again, the same thing, insert into my salary, and then the value should be for employee ID 1, I'm giving him $10,000. And then for 2 and 3, I'll give them like 8,000 and 6,000, something like that. All right, so we have a table and we have inserted 3 rows. and then let's do select star from my salary. So these are the 3 rows. All right, so pretty much we have the same table that we looked at in our example, right? And what I'm going to do is, just so that you can look at both the tables together, I'm going to paste them one below the other. So these are the 2 tables. Now, what will happen when we join both these tables via the employee ID? So it's going to give you all the common rows that both these tables have. So let's look at that. So I'll start off with select star, and again, I'm just saying we're choosing everything, but we'll go ahead and change this later. And I'm going to say from my employee, and generally we have to give an alias here. So the alias name can be anything, A, B, C, anything that you like. And now I'm going to say inner join, employee inner join with my second table, that's my salary. And again, I'm going to give alias over here. Once I inner join both these tables, I need to also tell them what is the common column between these tables. So can be A dot employee ID equal to B dot employee ID. Simple stuff. I forgot something. It's on A dot employee ID equal to B dot employee ID. Perfect. Now I'm going to remove this star, and I'm going to say that I need the first name and the last name from my first table and the salary from my second table. And incidentally, my first table is referred by the alias A. So if I do A dot first name, A dot last name, and my salary is in my second table, which has an alias as B, so I can say B dot salary. So imagine that you are joining 2 or more tables. You can easily refer to the various columns between these tables via this particular alias dot column name. Okay, let's execute this entire thing. You see that this is select star from my employee, this is select star from my salary, and this is how it joined. So three rows in both the tables, and the resultant is 3 rows in the last table because there were 3 common rows. So one thing to note again here is inner joins means it'll only give you the rows which are common between these 2 tables. All right, great. So we have some amount of knowledge in inner joins. Let's proceed and look at some outer joins. So I'm going to start with left outer join, and we're going to look at what we discussed when we mentioned about outer joins and left outer joins. When we discussed our left outer joins, we said that we have 2 tables, right? The first table is what we just created as my employee, and the second table is something that we'll create. But if you see that the first table has 3 rows and the second table has only 2 rows, what left outer join does is it takes every row from your left table and it takes all the rows from your right table that is common with your left table, and whatever is not common, it just marks as at null. So this will be the result. You see that the row number 1, 2 are common, so you find data from both the tables, whereas the third row is only available in your left table, so it could not find a corresponding match in the right table, hence it replaced by null. Let's see how it looks like when we write a query. All right, so we have our employee table. We just need to create our phone table. So I'm going to say create table my phone, and again, let's just keep it simple. Let's say employee ID as integer and phone number as integer. Okay, and then let's go ahead and insert 2 rows. Insert into my phone values can be 1 1 2 1 1 1 2 3 3 4 2, something like that, right? And then we say insert into my phone values for my second employee. All right, so we have a phone table. We have inserted 2 rows into it, and let's look at the employee and phone table one below the other and see how it looks like. All right, so we have the phone table, we have the employee table, and let's see how the syntax looks like and how the results look like when we do employee left join with phone. So the syntax is pretty much the same. Select star from my employee, and again you need to give an alias, so I'm giving it as A, And this time, instead of an inner join, I'm going to write left join with my phone, and I'm going to give it an alias on a.employee ID, because that's the common row, equal to b.employee ID. And instead of star, I need first name, then a dot last name, and I need a dot b dot salary or phone number. Okay, so you see that we're joining the first table with the second table using a left join, and let's see what it gives us. This is your first table, this is your second table. It could match the first two rows, employee ID 1 and 2, employee ID 1 and 2, but it didn't find an entry in the third row, for the third row, employee ID 3, so it replaced it by null. So basically what you're saying is, whatever is in the left part of this clause, take every row. And if you find a match, well and good. If you don't find a match, put a null. That's the whole concept of this. So the same thing also applies for right joins. So let's just extend that same concept in right joins. So when we discussed right joins, what did we say? We said that we have two tables, and it's kind of the opposite of a left join. You see that in your table 2, you have 4 rows. In your table 1, you have 2 rows. And out of those 2 rows, both the rows are present in both tables. That is, those are the common rows, right? So when you do table 1 right join with table 2, it basically says take everything from table 2, and if you find a match with table 1, well and good. If not, put a null in the corresponding cells. So employee ID 1 and 2 common, yes, you got data from both, we're good. Employee ID 3 and 4, there is data only in the table 2, in the right table. So take that and put nulls for your left tables. So let's look at this. So we have the employee table right now, and we just need to create one more table called, say, parking, and then we can test this out. Perfect. So let's go ahead and create a parking table. So create table, my parking, and then again, I'm just going to create some columns here, employee ID, integer, and then let's say parking spot can be varchar of 20. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to again insert some values. Insert into my parking. Values can be for employee ID 1, the parking spot can be A1, and for employee ID 2, the parking can be A2, right? So let's look at the employee and the phone and the parking tables side by side. Execute this, insert 2 rows, and then select star from my parking. All right, so table 1 employee, table 2 parking. What we are going to do, just for clarity, let me do it this way actually, so that you can look in the same order. Okay, so what we're going to do is select star from parking or my parking and give it an alias A, but this time we're going to say right join with my employee B on, what is the column? Common column is a.employee ID equal to b.employee ID. And then I'll go ahead and say from my first table I need the parking spots. From my second table I need the first name and the last name. Let's look at how this looks like. All right, the first table, second table, we saw that the two, when you say right join, everything from your right table is accounted for. Whatever it found a match, A1, A2, it filled in those, and whatever it did not, it basically put a null over there. So it's kind of, you know, if you understand left join, it's opposite and so on and so forth. Now let's proceed. Let's look at how a full outer join looks like. So kind of when we discussed full outer join, what did we look at? We looked at a table, we looked at a customer table and an order table, and we basically said that it's actually a combination of your left join and right join. That is, whatever is common gets filled up on both tables. then kind of you look at it from a left join perspective, where you see that you account for all the rows, and then whatever matches you fill in, whatever does not match you put nulls, and do the same thing for the right table as well. So let's create these two tables so that you can have a look, right? And this is how visually it looks like. All right, so I am going to go ahead and create a customer table. So I'm going to say create table my customer, and then I'm going to say customer ID, and then what did we have? Customer name. Yeah, customer name. And then I'm going to just insert 2 sample values. All right, and I'm going to copy this and insert another row. Perfect. So we have a customer table and we have 2 rows in it. Insert into each. Oh, okay. I forgot a parenthesis. Okay. All right. And then we had a order table as well. So let me just quickly go ahead and create the order table. We had the order number, and I think we had the order name, and then just a customer ID, which is basically your column where you can use to join your 2 tables. All right, so we have an order table, and then what we're going to do is insert into my order values can be 1, call it some order 1. And 1. Okay, just 4 values, 1 2 3 4. Okay, so we have 4 values now, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at both these tables together. Oops. Okay, 2 rows in the first table, 4 rows in the next table. Okay, so how should the output look like? Let's look at it. Select star from your first table. In this case, it's a customer table. Give it an alias. And now you use the word full outer join, and then you use my order as the second table and join via a dot customer ID equal to b dot customer ID. And then I would like to look at basically everything, but let's just use your column names. I need the customer ID and the customer name from my first table. Oops. And I need a couple of columns from my second. Let's take the order number and the order name. Okay, that should be it. And let's just format this a little bit so that you can see things more clearly. Okay. So the first 2 rows were common between both the tables. So that's why you find table from both the tables. But you don't find. So actually, let me do one thing. Let me just make it a little more interesting. I'll say truncate table my customer, and I will actually use a slightly different data. Okay, now let's see how things look like. Okay. Now you see there's just 1 row that is common across both customer ID 1 and customer ID 1. So that's why you find the entire data from both the tables. Next it goes to the second row. 3, John, it puts in here, it didn't find anything in the right side table, it put nulls. Now, it does the same thing for your right side table. the first row it finds common, so naturally it actually matched the columns with the both the tables. And then for order number 2, 7, and 8, there are no corresponding entries in your customer table, so it put nulls. So it's kind of a combination of your left join and your right join. Okay, now before we conclude, let's look at our last concept, that is cross join. Cross join, what we said is, if you have 2 rows from table 1, 2 rows from table 2, cross join will actually join with every single row, right? Table 1 will join with 2 rows, 2 rows for each row of table 1. So that's why you see that the rows start repeating. Again, best way is to look at an example. So let's actually look at these two itself, right? So we don't waste time creating another table. So we say that select star from my customer the syntax is cross join with my salary. And let's see how this looks. Okay, so my customer, you cross join with my salary, so that's why you're seeing every entry has 3 rows, right? So 2 rows from the first table, 3 rows from the second table. So the first row, that is customer name Rakesh, customer ID 1, joined with every single row from your second table. Similarly, it took the second row, joined with every single row in the second table. So that's basically what is a cross join. And another interesting way to write this is something like this: my customer, comma, my salary, and it'll pretty much give you the same result. It's just an alternate way of representing it. So we looked at some few examples of how to join stuff, and again, sometimes it can be a little confusing, and it's just writing more queries and getting more used to it. Basic rule of thumb is, look at 2 tables, look at what is the common column, and basically analyze what kind of data you need. Do you need just the common rows, or just the rows from all the rows from left table, all the rows from right table, and accordingly just apply our joins. And you can extend the same concept to multiple tables as well. You can write table A inner join table B on some common column, and again you can write inner join table C with again a joining column. So once you master this concept, it actually becomes really very interesting, and for data analysis, because you'll have lots of tables, and this will allow you to easily join each table, run aggregations, run summations, and so on and so forth. So I hope you enjoyed the concept of joins. See you later.